That was weird. I don't know why I did that.
Lately.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody back to Reignite Your Soul podcast. My name is Laura Balhuda, and I have a really incredible, beautiful friend here and client of mine, Sophia. And we just came off of a coaching session, and we felt very called to come on here. And just a little disclaimer for this episode. It may be a little bit of a heavier episode. You know, we were having a conversation, and we're going to be getting real about some kind of shitty topics that maybe you don't hear talked about in normal society. And with this episode, we really have an intention of just allowing you to feel liberated from feeling shame for maybe some things that you've done in your past or past experiences, and really feeling more confident to be able to confront them, so that you start understanding and start that healing process of understanding that you're really deserving of love, and that you're able to break free and still create a whole new way of being. Because on this podcast, you guys know it's all about opening up our minds, expanding our minds, and opening up our hearts to an entirely new way of being. And Sophia has such an incredible outlook on the world, and she's so knowledgeable, and she is just here for a really massive reason on this planet. And we have just became like really good friends over the course of the last few months, and we've had some really incredible conversations. So we wanted to come on here and just have kind of like a off the cuff chat, just between the two of us. A lot of this information, like we don't even know about each other. So it's just going to be a really real, vulnerable conversation between the two of us. And we just wanted you guys to be able to tap into this and join in. So thank you so much for being here, Sophia.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So maybe we can start off by maybe just like sharing a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your story. Because I know like you're feeling really called to just be able to allow people to see a new perspective of yourself, and also of myself too. Because, you know, we all have these parts of ourselves that we shame and that we're all healing from and moving forward. And I know on my recent kind of journey, really tapping into the understanding of how these patterns kind of replay all from our childhood. And a lot of this stuff is kind of programmed almost in our soul's path of what we're meant to do here in this lifetime and how they play out. And it's up to us to bring them into our awareness and really heal from them.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually so hard to talk about my story. Like as you're speaking right now, I can feel the big like throat chakra bubble coming up. But you know, I actually am a really firm believer that everything in life we go through happens to us. And so everything in my childhood, including like the jobs that I've had, the people that I've met, the family that I had, the experiences that I've gone through, I truly believe that they were here to build me into the person that I'm right now in order to bring a message forward. And that message for me is going to be really diving deep into the darkest shadow aspects of yourself. Because I mean, I've had a belief since I was a child that even like the what we in society would consider the darkest of people have the ability to heal themselves. And I remember going to school in Kingston, Ontario for behavioral psychology or behavioral science technology. Basically just my main focus at that point was that pedophiles can be healed. And it kind of led me into this massive self-healing process, which really unraveled this understanding within inside myself that I had experienced trauma so severely that I was beginning to act in ways that society would consider evil. And my healing journey, I really want to bring forth to people that like, regardless of like the things that you've done in your life, like you can come back from it and you are worthy of it, and you will come back from it, because I'm not going to let you not come back from it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy when we can start like kind of understanding and like seeing all of those parts where our story kind of fits in. And maybe you could just explain like a little bit more about, I know you mentioned like about like pedophiles and how they're still human and all of this stuff. And this is like a very controversial thing, right? Like we're going to be talking about this because like this is something that needs to be talked about. So I feel the exact same way. And I've always felt that way, that people are the way that they are because of the experiences that they've had in their life. We only know our reality based on what we've been presented in our life so far. And it's not until we have other people come in and expand our views or expand what our reality could be that we start seeing that there's something outside of that. And with like the spiral, and Sophia's now through level 2 of the spiral, it's bringing up these patterns that are so deep rooted in our subconscious, and our mind actually protects ourselves from actually seeing a lot of them. And so maybe you could just share a little bit more about some stuff that happened with you to kind of start you on this path to this. Because another thing that I'm a huge firm believer in is that there is nobody else that can share our story or allow us to really step into what our purpose is on this planet more than we can ourselves, because our past and our experience have been perfectly constructed for us to be able to share this specific message with the world. And I know that you have a big message to be able to share with the world. So maybe like, if you're open to it, just kind of diving a little bit deeper and saying a little bit more about where that kind of comes from for you within your childhood experiences.
Yeah, I mean, trauma, right? It's such a huge story that we all have, and it's really hard to know where to start. But the main point in my story where I realized that like something was like severely wrong inside myself was when I was probably around 21, and I had just experienced being date raped and raped by a boyfriend at the time. And for 7 years, I took that on as my fault. I told myself it was my fault, that I was wrong, that I was dirty, that I was disgusting, and that I didn't deserve to be loved. And in fact, I even denied that he did that to me. And I just continued living my life. And one day I just kind of realized like how unhappy I was. And I decided that I wanted to make a change. And within that moment of deciding to make change, I unraveled the history of myself through meditation and through music therapy and through plant medicines to understand, why experiences like this were happening to me, because they were so painful and they kept happening. Like, that wasn't the first experience I had with rape, right? Like, my first experience that I consciously remember was back in grade 4 or 5, and just having to submit to a male, and realizing like that really made me wonder, like, do we continuously have these patterns show up in our life again and again and again? How do we stop them, right? Because I was seeing different patterns in my life as well as far as relationships go. Like, I would always self-destruct relationships, and I wanted to know, like, why am I doing this? Like, I want to change. And it all leads back to childhood, right? Again, between the ages of 0 and 7, when our subconscious is programmed, and the experiences that have happened to us in those moments. And unfortunately, like, my little human experienced some very traumatic events, including a sexual assault at the age of around 3. And prior to that, had experienced something in the uterus, which caused a domino effect of trauma. And when that happens, what I've learned from my spiritual perspective is there's a split in the soul, and part of the soul leaves the body. And so basically, you're running on half of yourself, and that half of yourself is traumatized. And so you are constantly, when you're in a position where you feel unsafe, reacting from a place of trauma. And that is all about control, power, and asserting your dominance on people, right? Because you need to feel safe in order for everything to be okay. And so you try to control your environment. And so that's what I did growing up. Like, I had experiences where I would try to hold power over guys, right? In very, like, unfortunately, like, what we would consider in society as disturbing ways. But like, looking back now, it was a trauma, right? And I can't hold on to the shame from that. Like, this is so weird saying this out loud, knowing that this is going to be live. Like, I just want people to know that there's a reason why we are the way that we are, right? And I held so much shame from all the, like, from the times that I held power over guys when I was younger, that I never let anybody love me.
Mhm.
And that power holding over people came from the time when somebody held power over me. And I didn't even know that.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to be those ways, right? And
Mhm.
yeah, it's really, it's not a good feeling. And I don't ever want anybody to not feel like they can't be loved, because that is the worst feeling in the world. It is a pain that goes so deep. And it's so sad because so much of the world is feeling it. And
Mhm.
I just want to shift that, to be honest with you. I honestly don't even know if anything I said made sense, but
It
yeah.
made so much sense. And thank you so much, Sophia, for just coming on here and being vulnerable and sharing about this. And I'd love to ask you a few more questions about that. And then I'm gonna open up and I'm gonna share some stuff about kind of something that happened to me, and you know some of it as well. There's some parts that I haven't told anybody in the whole planet yet.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think I told one person. I think I told my brother just this past week. That was the first time I've ever shared, because I held that shame over it. But one thing I would love to point out with this is, like Sophia mentioned, this started when she was in the womb. Like, I think that's a big thing that we don't understand, is that our human bodies are already holding and storing emotions right from the womb. So we can no longer, understanding this, we can no longer hold shame for ourselves for doing certain things in our life, because literally it was before we ever had conscious control over these patterns being formed, right? Like most of them 0 to 7, like when we're conceived or when we're in, like even in utero, right, to when we're 7 is when our conscious mind is formed. You didn't have choice over these patterns that we picked up, right? And I know, like, you believe in this too, of like reincarnation, that we're here to pay off all of these karmic debts kind of thing. So it's like all of this stuff is there always working for us. So maybe if you wouldn't mind, I know this is going to be vulnerable for you and sharing this, but I feel like it's very important for people to understand different perspectives of different realities in which people are going in, because there's so many different things that happen within people's experiences of life that people will never ever understand. And I know for me personally, like I'm so grateful that you feel comfortable opening up to me, and all of the other clients that I have, like opening up to me in this vulnerable space, to be able to allow yourself to be seen in these lights, because it gives me, like, when I meet people, I always treat them from this place of love. It doesn't matter how they treat me anymore, because I know that people are only living under these patterns, right? So understanding that people are only living out of these patterns, it doesn't matter what they do to you. It's never like, I never take it intentionally, because it's something that they're going through. And it's like, they only need more love, right? Everybody only needs more love. So if you are open to it, Sophia, maybe sharing a little bit more about those experiences, like maybe starting right from the one back when you were like in utero that you found out, and how you found out about that. And then also, like when you said that there was the event at around 3 where there was a boy that made you kind of be submissive to that power, and that kind of started that cycle and locked that in. And I know a lot of this kind of came up for you in our spiral session last week, where some of this stuff kind of came to your awareness right away. And this is how powerful the spiral is, with really connecting to these patterns as well.
Definitely, yeah. So a lot of the work I do is in the brain. And so basically, like, I was working with plant medicines and psychology on my brain, and I was using meditation techniques as well, and using ceremonial like techniques to really tap into like different realms inside myself, which means you can tap into like different experiences that you've experienced, right? Like when we hear the term realms, we think we're going off into like woo, like la la land, but it's not. It's literally just remembering who you are. And
Mm-hmm. I love that.
um, so I would use that and I would ask, and with intention, right? Because that's the main part. You want to ask with intention and be open to receiving a truthful answer in order to be able to like process and transmute anything that's inside you. And so I was just curious. I was like, I was like, have I received like a trauma in this or at this time? And I was just open to asking question after question after question. And eventually I got the understanding that when I was in uterus, what happened was there was some tests being done and lots of needles being poked in my mother's stomach. And what that did, what I found out is it actually caused the amygdala in my brain to be very hyperactive. And so immediately in my mother's womb, before I had even been birthed into this world, my amygdala, which is responsible for the flight or fight response in your body, was overriding every aspect of my body already. So my little human was already constantly in fight or flight response, regardless of the situation that I was in. And then when I came out of the uterus, I was put into foster care, right? So you have that separation from your mom. And that again, once traumatized the amygdala, which basically just put my system into overdrive of like hyperactivity, just being so open to receiving all forms of information because that was the only way my body could survive or make sense of the world to survive, right? And then when I was around 3, from what I understand from the spiral, and just tapping back into those memories, like they're like, I just remember, I just want to make sure I get this right. I don't have the exact like memory locked in as to what happened. And I think that that's a really important thing to say because I don't want to put blame on anybody in my life for like this experience. But to me, like it doesn't make sense to me why my sexual drive was activated at such a young age, other than for somebody to have done something to me. And then in the spiral, when that the disgust came up at 3, like that is the only explanation to me that would make sense. And I did ask my guides and they did say yes. And they did tell me who it was, but processing that now has been really infuriating because it feels like my whole entire innocence was taken away from me. And my whole entire life, I know that I've had this evil side to me. Like, I know that. Like, people can tell me that I know that. But it wasn't me. It was like literally a trauma inside me that was so deep that I couldn't even see it. I couldn't understand it. I didn't even know that other people lived differently than me. It was just me.
Yeah, we only know what we know. And with that experience too, right? It's all out of safety, right? Like when something happens to you when you're a child, and maybe Sophia, you could explain a little bit more, say a little bit more about the event that happened that kind of was the one that kind of came up around 3. Are you open to sharing that?
The event. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like like I don't want to put blame on anybody. And I really want to make sure when I'm talking about like something like this to say that, because putting that blame on somebody is a heavy thing to say, right? So like I'm just gonna say from what I remember, like when I tap into the feeling, I'm clairsentient, right? So the way I remember things is through my feeling. And so when I asked to please tap into that feeling of disgust, what I can feel is this feeling in my sacral chakra, right above where I guess the vagina sits. And it's just like this ball of like shame that feels like, and it goes back to the same feeling I felt when I got raped, right? It's like this shame for it feeling good. It's like confusion. It's like, why does this feel good to me? But then I feel so disgusting at the same time because why is this person doing this to me? And then that's where your whole split around how you perceive love happens, right? Because I'm gay, but I have this confusion, or I had this confusion now that I serve men. And so I would constantly be confused about my sexuality because of that trauma. And yeah, it was messed up. Just put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for just being open and vulnerable and sharing all of that stuff. It's a lot to take in, you know, like it's a lot to be able to process all of this stuff and then also be able to release it and move forward, because we can look at you and like we see this like beautiful, loving, like gorgeous, stunning, like human that's just here to like change the planet, right? But it's the part of ourselves that we see, and we are the only ones. Like the human experience is such an intimate experience. Nobody is ever going to know the experience that you went through in your lifetime. You could tell the stories all you want, you could tell all of these things, but when it comes to the human emotions, nobody is ever going to know the story that we lived. Like it's such a deep, intimate experience. And you can just see like how these patterns kind of start playing out. And maybe you could share a little bit more, Sophia, about some of the patterns that have kind of played out through your life and then how they're showing up now in your present life. And then how you're wanting to kind of pivot those after going through this and bringing them into your awareness so that we can now integrate and change your way of being so that you can now step into accepting that part of yourself and moving forward. Because I know there's probably a lot of people watching or listening to this episode, however you're watching this, where you have parts of your life that you feel shame for, or that you feel guilty for, and maybe you don't understand fully where this pattern came in, but really being able to give them acceptance for where they're at in the present moment and understand that they too have the exact same power as you do and the exact same power as I do to be able to take those experiences, bring acceptance to them, to be able to forgive those experiences, to be able to take them into the present moment and still like see ourselves in our light and love for ourselves, and then be able to move forward and use that experience to be able to create change for people also going through that. Because it's one of the biggest things I love about you is that you're willing to go so deep into your healing. Like guys, like Sophia goes hard into the healing, and it honestly inspires me so much along my own personal journey as well. And we became very good friends with chatting about this stuff because there aren't many people that are willing to go this deep. But one of the biggest things I love, and one of the things that I always know within my coaching, like in the coaching industry and the healing industry, is we can only help people as deep as we choose to go ourselves. And that's why I'm always continuing to go deeper and deeper and deeper into my own levels of trauma and experiences so that I can heal those, so that I can further help my clients. And I know you're the exact same way, where you are allowing yourself to go to those places, even though they're scary as fuck, even though they're terrifying. And like, you're literally like, is this fucking real life? Like, did I experience this? Like, what is going on? Like, it seems like a fucked up movie. And you're like, no, like that was my life. And we undervalue that life because we've been taught to suppress our emotions. So it's like a cup, like having a cup. And it's like this experience happened where you got, like for your example, you got raped. And then you're like, literally shove it down. And you're like, okay, don't want to feel that because it's uncomfortable. Okay, next level, next level, next level. And you're pushing it down deeper and deeper into this cup that you undervalue your story. You don't remember all of these different layers that happened in there to make you the person that you are today. Right. So it's starting to bring these up in a loving container where you can actually take a look at them again and be like, holy shit, like, look at all that stuff that I went through, and look at where I am and look at who I am today, and heal them, accept them, forgive them, and fucking move forward and create massive change in this world.
I think one of the biggest, like one of the scariest parts of healing too is facing the fact that who you are might not actually be who you are. So like when I was facing my sacral chakra like journey, like I had to face the fact that I identified with being gay my whole entire life, but I very well might be straight. Like I had to go through that whole entire process of like diving headfirst into that, because when you want to find out the truth about who you really are, like you cannot run from any aspects of yourself, right? Because to have true happiness, you have to be true to yourself, and that will reflect on your external, right? So that means no attachment to any aspect of who you are, because that aspect of you might just be a trauma. And like it's really, really hard to face that when you realize you're like, oh, this sport I've been into my whole entire life, I was just into it because my parents loved it. And now it's my life. Who the fuck am I?
Right?
That is like what work does to you, right? Like the healing work. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, the healing path is definitely not one for the faint-hearted, but it is so powerful and one of the best experiences that you will ever have. And like having you to talk to has been an absolute lifesaver for me because yeah, it's really hard to find people who are digging this deep into their own subconscious. But I do see a huge shift in so many people who are starting to. And like I'm so excited to be here sharing this information for when people are ready to hear it themselves.
Yeah, it's such powerful work, and like it's heavy, but like honestly, I've never felt better in my life. And I know you were saying that too, right? You're like, I've never felt this like great in our lives. And it's like there's a whole new world out there that you don't even know what it looks like because you've never experienced it. And I want to share that with you because I didn't know that it was possible to be this happy. Yet you've got to like literally like unpack all of those fucking, it's like a backpack, right? You're wearing this backpack with all of this emotional shit from your past, and you've got to remove the shit from the backpack. And then eventually you're freaking running up the mountain. You're like, oh my God, I'm unstoppable. I can do this, I can do that. Your relationships get better. Like literally you start like making more money, like your career changes, your passions, like you just start feeling more vibrant. You're okay being yourself because you now know who you are. And I honestly, like, I think like almost everybody can really, well, maybe not, I shouldn't say that, I shouldn't generalize, but that feeling, I know I personally can resonate with that feeling of literally like being like, who the heck am I? And when I say that, it literally was like not that long ago. It was probably in like January where I came to this place where I removed so much of the old societal shit that I was standing there. I'm like, who the fuck am I? I think I texted to my friends. I think I put on my Instagram story too. I'm like, guys, I feel like I'm having an identity crisis. I have no clue who I am. No clue.
Yeah, it's like literally what happens when you activate your kundalini is it feels like, energetically speaking, what I'm saying is it feels like somebody hit you in the head with like a bat and you like got up and like your whole identity has like gone out and you're now standing there like this naked baby and you're like, okay, who am I?
Yeah.
And you have to learn how to rebuild your identity.
Yeah.
And it's really confronting. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. And I know earlier in our session, you shared like how scary it is to think that people are going through this alone. Right. So anybody watching this episode that feels like you're kind of in, if anything that we said resonated and you feel alone in this, know that you can reach out to either Sophia and I, and there is never any judgment. Like we've experienced a whole shit ton of things in our lives and we've heard it all, and there's never any judgment because it's the human experience, you know, it's sacred to you. So if you ever want to reach out to either of us, just know that that is totally there and it's always kept confidential. Obviously, this is a very, it's a new thing for both Sophia and I to be coming and doing this live on podcasts and YouTube. But I know for me and like my vision with my podcast and my YouTube channel is really to just bring the real and the raw to the human experience so that we can all learn from each other and just remove shame and guilt. I know last year I was like, fuck, I'm done with those emotions. I'm done identifying with them. Like, I'm just going to like see them and be like, oh, that's interesting. And allow them to go on by like a cloud.
It's so liberating, right? And like the more that you begin to open your ability to receive love by sharing your true experience with people, the more you realize that so many people have experienced the same thing. But you know, one word I actually get a lot when I start sharing the worst parts of like my what I consider to be like the darkest parts of my past is, well, now that we're talking about this, I guess I can share. And it's like this person has been waiting to share this experience for their whole life. And you can just see the liberation on them after they've said it. It's like this weight has been lifted off of them. And like there's no judgment with that because I just shared my darkest secret too, right? So
yeah.
And like I find that's where the deepest connection comes, is where we're in the pits of despair, right? That's why I worked in the downtown east side here in Vancouver as a mental health and addictions worker, because I find the best place to connect with people is in their darkest moments, because that's when you see the truth of who they are. And
Mm-hmm.
if you can show them that you can continue to love them outside of that, you are just changing their life in ways that you have no idea, because I've experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
And when people listen to me, like you were one of them, Laura, like when you made a choice to listen to me, my whole life changed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're here to offer people, right? Is just an ear. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to just be able to listen. Yeah, and have that place where you can feel comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. I find like I always say this too. I'm like those like shadow aspects. It's like we resent them so much, but honestly, like it's like the sexiest part about people. I'm like people that can like literally like open up and just share their deepest, darkest like moments and just be okay with it. It's like so liberating to be able to just look at that side of yourself and be like, okay, you know, like that happened.
You're like,
Okay,
gosh,
move
yeah, that
forward.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like we have complete control over changing all of it. And so
Yeah.
to get back to your story, and then we can kind of move on to me, and then you can drill me with some questions.
Yeah.
um, so so with this whole pattern, you mentioned the one experience where you felt like power was being held over you. What was that experience where you felt like that power was being held over you?
I honestly, like, I don't have like the memory of the actual event, and
Just
the
the
power
feeling.
being held in me. But what I do have memory of is like the disassociation that the event caused me.
Mm,
So, like, I remember always growing up and being so disconnected from feelings. So, for instance, like my family would be like, "Do you even feel empathy? Do you even feel compassion? Do you even feel this?" And like everybody was so concerned, right? That I was like this, like, I don't know, like narcissist or whatever you want to call it. But to me, I wasn't. I That's where the split in the soul had come, right? So to external people, I showed that side. But by myself, I have all these emotions that I've shared with you.
mm-hmm,
And that was the hardest thing for me, because involuntarily, every time I was around anybody, unless it was one-on-one, and it's still like this, like I'm just learning how to come out of this, learning how to feel safe here, but outside of one-on-one contact with people, that side of me comes out.
mm,
And I'm now realizing and accepting that that part of me isn't something to be ashamed of. It's just something to be patient with,
yeah,
and to realize that I was really, really traumatized,
yeah.
and have patience with my body while it adjusts to learning how to live a different lifestyle and an acceptance of love.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. And what were some of the I guess behaviors and patterns that you had um where you feel like you held shame from this patterning?
Sorry, can you say that again? Sorry.
Yeah, what were some of the patterns or behaviors that you had or maybe still have that you have felt shame for in the way that you projected them onto other people?
Yeah. So basically that whole event made me feel unlovable, right? So like the two of those events tied together made me feel completely unworthy of love, and that I'm only here to serve, and I'm not actually here to be loved. And so that carried forth throughout my entire life. Like, even in my family childhood growing up, like everything from the ages of like 0 to 9 basically looked picture perfect, right? Like my dad and my mom were so involved in my life. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, cooking us like meals every time we come home for lunch from school. She was my best friend. Brought me into dance, like all my creative art stuff. And then my dad was, bringing in good money and like providing us with like extracurricular activities. So he was our coach and everything like that. But I was unable to receive love for them from them. So I just thought I was there as a servant. And so if everybody else wasn't it was feeling okay, then I was okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody was upset, I was serving them, because that was the belief that I had inside myself. And that played into my relationships, like into high school. So like I would believe that I was just a servant, and I would get into really toxic relationships where my partner would cheat on me like literally every day. And I would still be there being like, what can I do for you to make you feel better? Oh, the person you're cheating on me with cheated on you. You're still lovable. I still love you. Like that's what it did to me. And then I got into a relationship, you know, with a boyfriend who held power over me and date raped me. So like this patterning just kept showing up in my life, right? Of like everybody I got in a relationship with could control me to some extent or another. But then also there was that really like negative side to me where when I felt threatened, I would become controlling and I would become powerful and dominating, right? So it there's two sides to it. And it got me to the point finally where my now ex-fiance like broke up with me, and she kind of saw this pattern in me, and I'm so thankful for that whole situation now that it's come and gone, because it's what woke me up to this. And I had been wishing for like my whole entire life to please, 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 like, can I please heal this? Like, it was the most lonely thing that I've ever experienced in my life. And that's why I would meet people in the depths of their loneliness, right? Because like I could feel their loneliness out. So I'd be drawn to them. And yeah, it just like forced me into a position of realizing that I've never allowed myself to be loved. And in order to compensate for that, I was like controlling of people, I was dominating of people, I was manipulative. And yeah, it affected my life in every single way. Like even at work, like I got fired from jobs because there's too much stimulus for me, right? So my natural state would be to go and sit and live in my head. And bosses don't like when you're living in your head daydreaming, right? So I would get fired from things. School, I'm so smart. Like I literally have to spend 2 seconds on school and I would pass, but I would fail courses because again, overstimulation. Like this affected every aspect of my life, and it made me feel like the shittiest fucking person. It made me feel like I was never gonna go anywhere, that I was unworthy, that I would never have a partner, and that I was this ugly little fat ass troll. That's literally how I felt about myself. And I had to undo all of that.
Yeah. And when there's so much trauma in the body too, how you shared, how you went up into your head, I know I can resonate with that so much. And I didn't even know at the time what the heck was going on, but I was so in my head. I couldn't quiet my mind down. I was literally like not even present in conversations. Like, I think sorry, say it again.
You'd want to be present in conversations.
Totally.
It's like it would affect friendships too, right? Like you'd want to
Oh yeah.
engage with them, and they would see that you're ignoring them and you're not trying to. It's just like you literally don't feel safe in your body.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Your body feels so unsafe that you then go into your head. And I think my like last relationship, like my ex would like literally tell me things and I'd be like, I didn't say that, or I didn't do this. Like literally no recollection of it. I thought there was something wrong with me for so long, but knowing now what I know, I'm like, frig, like all of that stuff I can forgive myself for it, because like I understand what was actually going on within me from all of these mini T traumas that happen over our life, or big T traumas, you know, all of this trauma that's like compiling in our physical bodies that we go up into our heads, and it's just like nonstop chatter in your head that you're literally, it impacts your whole entire life, like you said. And so Sophia, now understanding this pattern, understanding how all of this went, like what is going to change for you now moving forward? What are you most excited for?
So I'm actually most excited to like now let in love. And like this has started with you, Laura, where like I said it today during our session, like, and it made me tear up. Like I was open to receiving the love that you were offering me. And it was so enlightening to like feel that. And that was like the first time that I felt it. And that's not against, if anybody who is watching this knows me, that's not against you. You have offered me love. It was just my trauma that was unwilling to accept it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's to feel love. Like I didn't realize how truly like deeply saddening it is to feel so alone until I realized what it's like to feel love, right? Like you don't even know that you're feeling these ways until somebody decides to come in and show you differently.
Mm-hmm. And then you have that polarity to be able to see, okay, this is that, or this is that, right? Because when we're living in it, we don't even know that we're living in it. We don't even know what it is until something new comes in and we have contrast, right?
Yeah.
Like we live in a world where there has to be that polarity in order for us to actually understand what things are, right? It's like me looking at you and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're such an inspiration, right? The only reason I know inspiration from like within myself is because I see it in Sophia,
Yeah.
right? So we're all mirrors of each other. Thank you so much for just sharing
No worries.
everything.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's really like, it's just so cool to be able to see that. And another question for you, now that you're able to like really like receive love at that like that higher level of actually being able to understand and have that conscious awareness of it, what do you foresee changing in your life?
Absolutely everything. Like it's just absolutely everything, right? Because before, like people were offering me like versions of love, whether that was in the form of like a job or a partnership or like even just like a bag of chips, right? Like that's a form of love, an energy exchange. If somebody buys you a bag of chips, that's a form of love. If you're denying your friends from buying you a treat, you are depriving yourself of love.
Yeah.
That's how this works, right? And like we don't
Yeah.
even we don't even realize it. And so like my whole life is gonna change, right? Because now I'm gonna start saying yes to those things that I once said no to. Now I'm gonna start moving past fears and you know allowing myself to feel worthy. And that, yeah, again, it's just gonna change everything.
So good. And I love how you mentioned too, kind of those forms as in like how it can show up in your life, because like it shows up in so many different ways, yet the awareness around it. So if you're somebody compliments you and you maybe don't even say thank you, you get very uncomfortable, like that is you rejecting love.
Me.
Right? I know. Yeah. Or if somebody compliments you and you immediately give a compliment back, right? It's like there's this energetic shield of your worthiness, like literally like an energetic shield that you have blocking love. And whenever somebody says it, it comes in and it just goes whoop, so you never actually absorb it. So one of the things that I shared today was like when somebody compliments you, just saying thank you and allowing yourself to just feel that love and not offering a compliment right back or not whatever, even if you feel uncomfortable, like feel the uncomfortableness, but like allow yourself to receive it. Or if somebody buys you something, right? Like so many times, like you offer to buy something and then somebody's like, oh, no, no, no. Right. Like when somebody offers to buy you something, like don't have that energetic shield up blocking them because it makes them feel good to buy you stuff. Right. So allowing and saying, thank you.
Yeah. And by the way, the universe is going to test you with small things first. If
Totally.
you're unwilling to accept something as small as a bag of chips, you think the universe is going to offer you your dream job on a platter?
Right.
Hell no.
No,
No, you got to
exactly.
be ready to receive the gifts that you're
Yeah.
like that the universe and that you have like talked about getting and receiving, you know. That's why the work that we do is so important because we have to clear these blockages in our chakras, right? In order to be able to be ready to be able to receive.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we put that energetic shield up, that's when we're not ready to receive. It's when we
Mm-hmm.
have to do internal work. It's when we haven't looked inside ourselves yet.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's basically everything. It's a game changer. Being a
Okay.
receiver instead of a giver or instead of a go-getter, game changer.
Yeah. Yeah. And for your business and stuff and like the impact that you want to make in the world. Okay, guys, Sophia is like incredible. I want you guys to go follow her. Sophia, where can people follow you?
You can follow me at Sophie Clark, SOFIE CLARK on Instagram.
On Instagram. Yeah, go follow Sophia, sorry, because she is literally like changing. And now I'm like, Sophie,
I know, I
Sophia.
really gotta, yeah, I really gotta change
Your
that.
Instagram name.
I
Yeah.
still have people who like message me on my inbox who have like known me for years, and they were like, "Hey, Sophie," and they spell my name that way, and I'm like,
Yeah,
dude.
just from seeing it.
I know.
Yeah. But yeah, so go follow Sophia, because literally, like, she's in the very beginning of like what she's bringing to this world, like what she's going to be creating in the next year, 5 years, 10 years. Like, I am just so fired up. I always say that. So I'm like, I'm so excited and just grateful to have like this front seat view of like all of the magic that you're creating in this world. But maybe you could just share a little bit more about your plant medicine experience, why it's so impactful to you, and what people can attain from plant medicine, because I'm so passionate about plant medicine too. And I'm like literally always experimenting on myself with these things to be able to bring this to the world. And guys, there's so many studies going on right now with how plant medicine is actually helping people to heal traumas. They're already doing the studies. It's already well known. So Sophie and I are just going first. We're not waiting for these things to come out. We're literally going forward with it right now. Yeah.
Basically, like, goes back again to childhood. Like, my mom had ovarian cancer and alcohol addiction growing up, and I witnessed the very real pains of that. And as a child, I was never in a, ooh, I'm going to be upset about this. I was always in a problem solving mindset. And so I made a deal with the universe that I was going to solve this issue. And lo and behold, I found myself in a very bad mental position, only to realize it was there to help me learn how to undo it so I could fulfill my dream of figuring out a different way to heal. And so basically, after the relationship ended with my ex-fiance, that was a very like tower moment experience for me that I needed. I committed fully, and I even have like a video diary of it. I said, I'm fully committing to heartbreak. I'm committing to every single step that it takes to feel this heartbreak, because I knew that the only way to heal what I had to heal was to fully dive into this heartbreak. And I had been using plant medicines since I was 14, and I always kind of knew that that was my comfort. And I also always got really triggered when people told me that like plant medicines were addictive. And so I wanted to explore that more. And I basically intuitively picked up on my past life from Lemuria when I was a shaman. And I just started doing like medicine ceremonies on me. So like I started setting an intention. I started using like nature's things like sage, palo santos, crystals, and stuff, and listening to my intuition. And I would intuitively use the tools to basically unblock things from my body. And so I'll give kind of an example. Starting to talk on camera was really, really hard for me. And so what I did, I knew that that was hard for me. So I knew that I needed to set a camera up in front of me to just start getting comfortable in front of it. So I was recording a plant medicine ceremony I was doing. And I literally stop and I look up at the camera. I'm like, fuck. Everybody, sorry. Shoot.
No,
Everybody.
that's okay.
Yeah.
You're allowed to swear
Yeah.
on this podcast.
I'm like, oh, everybody's watching me. And then I intuitively got to walk through with plant medicines, um, the ways to remove those blockages from my human. And I realized in that moment that like all the things people had said to me growing up, you know, your skin's too dark, your lips are too big, like all these things that had been said to me as a kid were what was creating that fear. And when I allowed the plant medicine to bring those memories up, I was able to see them and cry, because that's pretty like shitty, and release them.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm standing in front of a camera, like talking to you, right? It's yeah, plant medicines are absolutely incredible, and I can't like speak too much about it because I don't want to give too much away, but they have the ability to work with all 5 of our bodies in order to facilitate a really, really balanced healing process for the individual. And when I talk about balance, I mean holistically balanced. Like plant medicines will teach you how to eat properly for your own body. So they're not gonna teach you through the internet. They're gonna teach you about your body and why you're here on this earth and how that affects the food that you need as your own individual human. And plant medicines are going to teach you about your own mind and about all the conditionings that you have inside you, the conditionings and programmings, and how it's affected you. And they're also going to teach you about connection. So basically, plant medicines work the same way that a friendship does. You don't go barreling into a friendship expecting, worlds and like fires and like fireworks and everything to collide, right? Like healthy friendships are built off of, or relationships are built with transparency and honesty, right? Same with plant medicines. If you're not going to be honest with medicine as to why you're working with her, expect some consequences of that, right? Like if you think that you're going in there to conquer plant medicines, expect to be scared to death, because they're not there to play around with. They are there to really, really work on yourself and see the truth of you. They are truly giving you, they are God's gift to you.
Yeah. They're giving you what you need, not what you want. That's one of the first things I learned in my plant medicine experience. And most people don't even understand how they have 5 bodies, right? You've got your mental body, your emotional body, your physical body, your energetic body, and your spiritual body. You have 5 bodies. And usually you only hear people talking about the physical body, something that in society, we've only talked about the physical body for so long, right? Yeah. And I love how you mentioned how it's a relationship. I know I'm still starting to build my relationship with the plant medicine as well. And there's a lot of people that have fear around them smoking weed or using cannabis or using mushrooms or using different substances, different plant medicines, or even drugs, right? And not having that respect going into it. So they're terrified. They have that horrible experience and they never want to go back and you see them again. Because like you said, they are not there to fuck around. They're there to help you. They're there to show you what you need in your life right now and help you to move forward. Yet, that being said, doing this under like the support and guidance of having that facilitator to help you go through this, like Sophia or myself, like it is massive to bring understanding to this and feel safe in what you're experiencing. That's one of the biggest things why, like for me, and I know you did Iboga as well. I haven't done Iboga personally, but with my ayahuasca experience and Bufo and Jopo is because it was in that container with a shaman who controls the energies, right? Like it's important to have that control of the energies while you're going through it, and also doing it in that container where you're also feeling safe. So even when I'm personally, like I do it by myself, yet I'll share this because there are probably people that are watching this that may use plant medicines on their own, that I always call in my angels. I always call in my guides. I ask for protection. I visualize a bubble of light around me, and I ask them to keep all of the energies within this bubble, the highest frequency that is serving my highest good, and setting an intention, like Sophia said, about setting an intention of what it is that you're wanting to learn coming out of this experience. And then going into it with that intention, it's going to move you into a whole new direction. And if you just fucking go into it and you're just like, oh, you know, and like go into it, it could be a fucking terrifying experience for you.
I think that's so important that you touched on that too. And I really want to touch like a little bit more on it, is learning the aspect of how to call in your guides and like put that protection light on is a process in itself too, right? Like there's steps to learning how to work with plant medicines, because if you're just, like you said, like that white light bubble is there because you're literally opening up the deepest, darkest wounds of yourself, right? With plant medicines. And if you're not protecting the energy around you, you're allowing basically any form, positive or negative, to come in and to be a part of that experience and influence it. And I used to try to rush the process of like learning how to put a light bubble on and like learning how to call in my guides because I just wanted to like get it done. And I realized like you really can't do that either because that again is building the relationship with
Yeah.
one, the universe for giving you a light bubble, and two, it's building a relationship with your guides, right? If you're just zipping through that stuff, they're not plant medicine isn't going to give you the relationship you want either.
No.
You gotta learn and really, and then there's a process before even learning how to do that, right? Because you gotta learn the different types of like claircognizance, clairaudience and stuff, and learn how you interact with the subtle bodies of the universe. So you learn how to activate those light bubbles, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
for so long I was trying to activate a light bubble through my third eye, but I'm more powerful in my clairsentience. So I eventually had to switch and learn how to activate for my clairsentience. And that's when the true light bubble came out. And I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this whole time I've been sitting here
Mm-hmm.
doing work potentially without protection. I mean, our guides probably wouldn't let that happen if you're just starting out, but
Yeah.
it is something to really like take seriously. It's not um like your mental well-being is your number one concern, and that is a huge way to protect your mental well-being. So like it's so important
Mm-hmm.
you said that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for expanding on that. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a learning process, right? And it's all new stuff. And I know for me, like, I was just blessed that I went to that first ayahuasca experience. I had no clue what I was getting into. I was literally like, this is going to be great. I'm going to blow through my limiting beliefs. No clue.
Yeah.
No clue. I came out of it and I was like, oh dear God, that was so different than I ever expected, but it changed my life forever. Changed my life forever. And anybody that's known me over the last it's been, when was it? It was October 2019 when I did my ayahuasca experience. And I feel like the person I am today is like completely different, all because of that, because it allowed that Pandora's box to be opened. And there's nothing to be afraid of within that Pandora's box. It's like we've talked about a lot of heavy shit, but the
Yeah.
cool thing is like we talk about it and then you just release it. You release it, you let go, and then we focus on what's going good. And then what we focus on
Honestly,
expands. So it's
honestly, I don't
like,
even remember what we've talked about,
I know,
right?
right?
Is that
Yeah.
if emotion comes up and you let it go, right?
Yeah.
That's how you learn. But I actually, you talked about ayahuasca, and like I feel like I've been talking a lot, and it's kind of my turn to pick your brains. But
Yeah, for
want
sure.
to like be able to kind of talk a little bit. I think something that would be interesting to bring up is the different types of plant medicines that we've done, right? And how they've helped us. Because even like just going to my iboga experience, I learned about Kambo, I learned about like, different other
Yeah.
ones that I hadn't even like been brought into my energy. And like ayahuasca is something I haven't done, and it's the
Mhm.
opposite end of iboga. And so yeah, let's talk a little bit about like the different types of plant medicines that we've done, and even
Yeah, I definitely can. It's funny because I literally like last week my Instagram wanted me to talk about it and I hadn't, because the neighbor was like literally like had such loud music on. I didn't want to go inside and record a video because it was such a nice day out. So I'm like, okay, well, this video wasn't meant to be recorded. So I guess this was why, guys. See, this is like divine timing when you don't resist things. I used to
yeah.
resist things and be like, oh, I need to do this video. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, there's always a bigger plan.
See, I had
Um,
no idea that was
yeah,
the thing too.
crazy,
So,
right?
like that was probably your higher self channeling through me.
Yeah, seriously. I know everything's always
Oh,
like
the universe
divinely
works, guys.
connected.
The universe works through higher selves, and when you're connected to your soul tribe, that you will work through each other to help each other progress.
Yeah.
Isn't it
I love that because it's funny because like all my friends now, sometimes they'll reach out to me and they're like, Laura, are you okay? And I'm like, no.
no, right?
Because they just know. It's like you don't even need to say words anymore. It's just like they just know.
Sometimes I just say yes because it's not like no, but it's not like yes. But it's like I can't, no, I just can't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we could definitely chat about that. So yeah, like I shared, my ayahuasca experience was October 2019, and I literally I didn't even know about it before. I heard about, like, once I read Peter Kelly's book Earth is Hiring. If you haven't read that book, it's
Yeah.
incredible. I would highly recommend it. She's somebody that's like with the same nutrition company that I'm with, Isogenics, and she's just incredible, like world changer. She did ayahuasca. She shared in her book about her experience and how it changed her life. My friend Alex, she went and did, when I was traveling through Europe, she did one ceremony when she was over there. And she told me how hard it was. Like, she literally relived her birth and like a whole bunch of crazy stuff. And when you hear somebody talking about it, you're like, I don't know, like I was just like, oh, that doesn't sound too bad, like blah, blah. And how you shared earlier, Sophia, about the empathy, like feeling like you're not empathetic. Mm-hmm. I can resonate with that so much, because even like with my experience being a paramedic, like I saw some stuff that most the average human like wouldn't be able to do. And for me, it was literally just nothing. It was nothing. But that's because I've numbed for so long, ever since I was a child as well, with stuff that happened in my childhood, where you numb and you suppress and all of these things. So when you come into this, it's like, I was like the perfect role for, exactly, like it splits. And I was the perfect role for that. And it's interesting because one of the things that I'm really feeling called to, and I shared this recently after going through the spiral for my prac training, after going through it in a week, it really came to the forefront of my mind that I feel very pulled to help first responders. So paramedics, police, firefighters, and military. And I don't know where that's going yet, because it's still very new to me, but I have a feeling that this is maybe something where that research and stuff is going to come in, because when it comes to traumas that happen in our childhood, it almost preps us perfectly for those jobs, because you need to be somebody who can dissociate and have that split to be able to handle that job. Definitely. Right. But what I'm wondering is if, and like maybe I'll just have to see through the experiences, is if the majority of people that are in those roles did have something happen when they were very young, that was a trauma that happened that made them the way that they are. So it's, I'm kind of like interested now to be able to see that as my career kind of progresses in this area.
And I think that that's like something really important to touch on, because like I actually went through an experience in my healing that kind of goes hand in hand with that. Like I became my trauma, my career became my trauma. It's just like, it's weird. Like it's everything about the way we grow up is weird.
Yeah. And I'm starting to see now like how it all happens for a reason, right? It all happens for a reason. Our biggest adversities become our biggest advantages. And that's what I love about entrepreneurship in general, is the fact that we get to overcome our own struggles, and then we get to create an income and create an impact by helping those people. So it's like we go first, and then we start taking people with us. And anybody can be an entrepreneur as long as you're willing to face the traumas that you've had and face those experiences, because there's always people that are going through the same things that you've now overcame. So there's literally an abundance of people out there waiting to just be helped by us sharing our stories. But to get back to that, so Alex went through ayahuasca. She shared her experience, and I was just like, wow, that sounds awesome. And the biggest thing was that I saw literally in the way that she was, and the way that she, like, her way of being, her energy changed. And I was like, yo, this bitch is not moving forward without me. No way that's happening.
I am not doing this alone. Yeah.
Yeah. So she was like she was moving forward, and I'm like, oh my God, no way I'm being left behind. So she told me that there was an ayahuasca ceremony coming up, and this was, I think, in September, and the ceremony was in October. And she like let me know about this thing. I reached out to the person who runs the retreat, and he's actually from Brantford, which is really cool. He's a Canadian, but he lives in Colombia now. He has this amazing retreat, La Ceiba, and he does all of these healing ceremonies. So I was like, I contacted him. I'm like, hey, I'm joining. I was like, literally like, hey, like, I'm going to Colombia. So I planned 3 weeks to go to Colombia. It was like, I think like 3 weeks prior to when the ceremony was. And Alex ended up coming with me, because she was like, oh my God, I can't let Laura go through this alone. She has no clue what she's going through. She has no
also like, it can be like, yeah, honestly, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm so blessed that she was just such an incredible friend. Like, she went through it again because she didn't want me to go alone, because she just knew like how difficult it would be. And so I went to that ceremony, and it was 5-day retreat, 4 ceremonies, 3 nighttime, 1 daytime. And like my very first one, oh my gosh, I think I have my book right here. 1 second. Is this it? Oh no, it's not. I have my book here somewhere. I wish I had it here, but I'll kind of just explain just from the top of my head, kind of like what happened in those ceremonies. I remember my very first one. Prior to this, I had only smoked weed. never done any psychedelics, nothing. Like I was one of those people, especially being in the paramedic career, that I saw the detriments that drugs did.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like anti-drugs, because you see people that are literally 24 and they've done cocaine and they're now having ischemic chest pain because they're so young and they're using these drugs. So I saw what it did to people that were misusing the drugs, right? And like heroin overdoses, all of that stuff. Like I saw all of the most terrifying things when it came to it. So when it came to, for me to doing drugs, I smoked weed like a tiny bit, like since I was in high school, but I never dug into it because there was so much fear around it. And I'm learning now that the reason why all of this fear is there is because plant medicines actually help us to expand, which society wants to keep us in this box so that we don't all keep expanding, because then we don't follow the rules. Right. That's why I love the spiral, because it kicks people out of the friggin' following the rules. Right. It's for the rule breakers, the one that actually want to create change and impact. So in that first ceremony, I literally had to release everything like about control. I remember even just doing rapé, which is just like a tobacco snuff. They do that as like prior to the night before. And it was the first time you get like very lightheaded. It's just like, it's tobacco, right? So very lightheaded. I got very hot. And I like, it's like you lose that sense of control. And I remember sitting there and I was like, oh my God, like Laura, you've got to release control, because like it's just like so uncomfortable, right? And so I just allowed myself to kind of surrender into it. And then it started like raining like very gently, which cooled me off and I felt okay again. So that happened the night before. And then when I actually went into my ceremony, what ayahuasca is it's MEO5 DMT. So it's a very strong hallucinogenic, and they combine two roots, one root and one leaf. And then they combine it, you drink it as a tea. It does not taste very good.
I was gonna ask, does it taste good?
No, you've got like, it's luckily, and even like just saying that, like I literally like was almost like
I know, that's every once in a while I get a little bit of a taste of iboga in my mouth. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. So we started the ceremony and you go up and it's beautiful, like you said, like intentions and all this stuff. And there's a doctor there, like everything, to make sure that everything's okay. And it's a small group. I think there was 13 of us maybe that did it. And we went up and started. I had my first cup, and usually it takes about an hour for it to kick in. For me, my very first ceremony, I had to have 3 cups before it kicked in, which is like, that's a lot. I don't know why. For me, like it took 3. I had the first one, didn't feel anything. The second one, like I was seeing kind of like slight, like I can remember seeing like little kind of jagged shapes kind of coming into my vision, but nothing really. And so like, I remember Keenan came up to me and he's like, oh, has the medicine, like, have you connected with the medicine? And I was like, no, I don't think so. And obviously, you know that when somebody says, I don't think so in a plant medicine ceremony, they haven't connected with the medicine. So he's like, okay, yeah, so go up for your 3rd cup. And I was like, okay. And it was funny because prior to that, I was like debating going and getting another one, but then like the fear, right? It's like, no, like, I think that's good. Like, I'm only going to push myself this amount, right? And that's one of the biggest differences too, between doing this as like a group opposed to doing it yourself, is because humans don't like pain or discomfort. Like we will literally resist it like crazy. So that's one of the biggest things that I love about ayahuasca, because it's a 4 to 6 hour trip. So like once you're in it, you're in it. You have no choice of getting out. And so me, when I had that the third cup, like I remember literally this feeling like my brain like kicked into my subconscious. Cool. And I literally was like, oh my God, I feel like a crazy person. I feel like somebody that's in those movies that's literally rocking back and forth, like literally like a crazy person. And I'm like, this is fucked. So I had to release so much control of my identity, now feeling like a crazy person. And like that was one of the
right.
Yeah, and like being okay with it. Yeah, because it was so mind expanding.
Being broken.
And like a lot of like purging, like my very first one, like puking, like shitting, like it really like releases everything. They say ayahuasca goes where you need it. And for me, I've had so many digestive issues with IBS and stuff like that, that a lot of the pain that I was having throughout my ceremony was through my stomach. And that's because it's healing, it's working to be able to heal those parts of yourself. And it's incredible hearing stories of other people, because not everybody had that experience, only me, because I had that history, that's where it kind of localized. And I remember like in my first 3 ceremonies, basically it was a lot of fear, like literally like crazy fucked up things, like twisting clowns and like, whoa, like literally like I went to the Holocaust, like limbs, like dead things, like,
you know what, I got a message when you were saying that of, it was to see how far you could push yourself. Like, could you bring yourself back from fear every time it was presented to you? Like, how strong was your mind?
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. Because throughout those ceremonies, like so much for even like there was dogs barking, I would literally jump. Like I would jump. I was terrified and I had to release this. And like accepting the fact that this stuff was happening was like so crazy. And when I think it was during the second one had just finished, and I was actually able to get my mind into a meditative state. And I was so amazed, because this is the thing, is that when we're put into intention, it's just like cold ice water baths, right? Like when we intentionally put ourselves in a high stress environment that's controlled, we're then able to then elevate our stress levels. Like we're able to elevate our ways of coping with stress. It was the same thing with this. It put me under all of this stuff, but I had to come to that place of surrendering to it and not resenting it, to actually be able to come to that place where I could accept all of these uncomfortable feelings within me, because all of these uncomfortable feelings are within us. We just have to come to that place of acceptance to be able to sit with them. And so like I got to that place of like being able to finally meditate. And then Keenan came up to me again and he's like, well, are you ready? And I'm like, ready for what? He's like, the next ceremony. I'm like, oh, dear God. I was barely even out of the second one. Yeah. And then went into the third one. And like the third one was like really tough for me. I was physically exhausted by that point. I literally, like, I remember I had to get up and go grab my water that was like down the hallway, and I could see it down there. I remember standing up to go get it. And I literally had to like convince myself, I'm like, you've got this, like, go fucking get the water bottle. And I'm walking down there and I felt like it was like in a movie where it was just like in Saw, like where literally like, it's like kind of like grayed out and like hazy. And like, I felt like I was like kind of like going down to grab like this water bottle. And I got to my water bottle and I was so grateful for my water bottle. And literally at that point, I was literally base needs. I remember them saying, as long as you're breathing, you're good. So I literally wake up gasping for air. And as long as I was breathing, like I was like, okay, perfect. I'm good. I would drink my water. And I was so grateful for even just like the smallest sips of water. Like it really brought me back to like understanding like our base survival needs. Because being over in North America, guys, we are so blessed. There are so many things, like we're so ungrateful. We're ungrateful for things because we've always had our base needs met for the most part, right? Like there's some experiences that we've had where they haven't been met, but compared to other people in different cultures, like we're so blessed over here. So that was like a huge thing for me, was really understanding like those survival needs of that. And then I remember at one point too, like I was so weak. I literally just like, I got to the point where I'd just given up. I'm like, well, I'm dying here. Like I'm kind of like at my wit's end. Like I couldn't stand anymore. It was exhausting. And I remember this feeling of like, it was like my heart stopped. And then all of a sudden, like I woke up and I gasped. And it was just like, I remember just like seeing like light. And I was like, oh my God, like, did I actually just, I still don't even know whether like something actually happened at that point or whether it was within the trip, because you don't know what's real and what's not. But like that was, light body. Yeah, it very well could have been. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's, I don't know, maybe.
Hopefully. Yeah. And then like coming out of all of the 3-night experiences is when you come out of it and that the sun's coming up, you start seeing all of the colors of everything. And it's so beautiful. Like you will never experience anything more beautiful than like being on plant medicine and just seeing the world in a completely different way. And from that contrast of what I was in with that severe darkness, and then you open up your eyes and you see this light, it's like you see the world with a whole new different lens of being able to see the beauty and be grateful for all of the small little things. And when you're kind of coming at it, because I was so exhausted, as soon as I would close my eyes again, I would go back into the shit. And then I would like wake up again. So then you're seeing like all of the kind of like the bright, amazing things. And it was like that contrast. I remember after that kind of third ceremony, after it was done, I laid there and I didn't want to get out of bed. I was so depressed. I was like, one of the big questions I had was like, how can I be living this life when there's so many people suffering? There's so many people living in this state that I was just in for the last 3 days, like literally every single day of their life right now. Why am I somebody that is so blessed to be able to live the life that I get to live? And I understand now that it was giving me that contrast, because in order for me to do what I'm doing now, I had to experience that depth of suffering. I had to experience that depth of shit in order to be able to actually hold space for people that are going through this shit. That's why people can tell me absolutely anything now. And I'm like, I can hold it because I've went through it.
Yeah.
And coming out of it, it was just like, I don't know, it was just such an eye opener for those first 3 ceremonies. And then it got better, guys. Not every ceremony is like that dark.
Even the darkest ones are like, looking back on them now, like, well, how do you feel about it? Like, even though it was your darkest experience, like, truthfully, how do you feel about it?
I'm so grateful for all of it. All of it. Like, I learned so much through all of those experiences, and I'm probably missing a whole bunch of parts that happened in it. I wish I had my journal here, but like reading through it, I read through it just the other day, and I was reading through it and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I learned so much through these experiences. And if you ever do plant medicine, make sure you journal, because the thoughts and stuff that you have afterwards are just incredible. But yeah, the darkest moments, like they truly did teach me so much about the light, right? We don't know darkness without light, and we don't know light without darkness. And then for that, the 4th ceremony was a day ceremony, and it was so incredible, like so incredible. I was like literally like laying in a hammock, and literally I just had my eyes closed, and just bright yellow, like geometric shapes, like just crazy geometric shapes. And I had Mother Ayahuasca literally in my ear the whole time, convincing me, okay, get this, I was literally like resisting this, convincing me that you can be, do, or have anything you want in your lifetime. Like, why would we resist that?
That's
right?
so
Why would we resist that? But because it's the conditioning, right? Our conditioning that we're placed inside this box. So she was literally convincing me, and I was like, literally felt so uncomfortable in my body. And I would just repeat to myself, you've probably, if you've been following me for a while, you've probably heard me say this, it's okay to feel this way. Because it was in that ceremony that came through to me, to just keep saying that to myself. It's okay to feel this way. It's okay to feel this way. And to start normalizing all of these emotions that we have within us, whether they're heavy and we don't like sitting them, or whether they're light and we love sitting them. All of them are perfect. So I just kept saying to myself, it's okay to feel this way.
Plant medicine really does gas you up, right? Like like you said, like there's such different experiences with plant medicine, and
So many.
there's times where plant medicine will show you the most beautiful aspects of your life, and like you'll just feel so much joy and so much enlightenment, and you'll just see yourself in a completely whole new light, and you're like, whoa, that's me,
right?
Yeah. And like, so like there is dark and the light with plant medicines. It's just about getting through the dark first. And
exactly.
And I can't believe you've done ayahuasca. Like that to me, like, is a little bit, that one's going to be different for me, right? Because that one's like more blasting like outwards.
Yeah.
And
I also definitely went to different dimensions at some point. I was like, am I in space?
Where am
I?
I feel like that's going to be hard. Yeah.
And then to just kind of like share more about that other, like the last experience that I had too. Anybody that knows me knows I've struggled a lot with like really feeling confident. I wasn't, even now, like I still struggle with it. Like really sharing my truth and feeling like I'm not good enough to do anything. Like even my coaching, like I have so much knowledge and so much wisdom and so much to help people, yet I still doubt myself, thinking that like I'm not able to, right? It's just all constructs within our mind. And in that ceremony after, so once she was convincing me and I finally let it go, and I fed into that belief, it literally, like I felt like this huge energy left me. And I was literally, it was like a switch like flicked, and I was just like, holy fuck, this is the best thing ever. And it was like I got to tap into my inner child, and I was literally like, like what do I want to do now? I like literally, like I was just like kind of walking around, and they were playing, like they always play beautiful like ceremonial music. So like I was sitting there by my bed, and I like peeked around the corner and I saw some people dancing, and like at first I'm like, oh, like, well, I kind of want to go dance, and they're like, no, like you can't do that. And then I'm like, wait a second, yes I can. So I got up and I was like dancing, just not giving a fuck what anybody was thinking. And it was like really freeing for me, because I always feel like people are judging me, and I always feel like people are looking at me. And in that instance, when I was there just dancing, doing my thing, everybody in ayahuasca is so in their inner world, but in reality, that's what life is normally like. Everybody's always in their inner world. People aren't fucking thinking about what you're doing with this, they're thinking about themselves. So it's like a huge eye-opener for me, being like, oh my God, yeah, they're in their own world dancing, I'm here in my own world dancing. Like nobody really gives a fuck, right? And so I like literally like went through that, and it was just massive. I like would go up on the hill. I was doing like handstands. I like went back to my bed and was like literally like kicking my legs around like a child. I remember Alex like sitting beside me. Like she's like probably like, what the fuck is going on?
So
I'm just there doing that. And I started journaling. I'll have to show you the pictures I was drawing. I had like this vision in my head about a unicorn, and I drew it out. And I'm like, oh dear God, that does not look like anything that was in my head. It was just like the worst unicorn like you would ever see in your life. And I'm just like, oh man. I started writing a bucket list.
Yeah.
Like my bucket list. I started writing things down, and then I just crossed it out, and I'm like, fuck that. I'm just gonna do what I want when I want.
Yeah. You're like, fuck that, I'm just gonna go with the flow, right? Because
yeah, like all these
changing.
rules.
Yeah. And like when you work with plant medicines too, like do you find that because I know you've mentioned this before in our conversations, like you just grow like so exponentially when you work with
Oh my
plant.
God, so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, from what I know about, like, it's like it condenses, right? The way that I see it, I never in normal real life, when we come into places of pain, when all of these things are trying to come to the forefront so we see them, right? Because everything's always working for us, we distract or we do this or we do that because we don't want to feel those feelings, right? Whereas this, it makes you sit in them. Like it doesn't let you leave. Like there's not just like an off switch where you can be like, hey, I'm done now, thank you. Like I wish that every single ceremony, I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why would you do this again? Like literally every ceremony I said that. I'm like,
as it starts to kick in, right? Yeah. As it starts to kick in, you're like, damn it.
Is there an eject button? But I think that's the biggest thing, right? Is that like once you do it, like you're along for the ride, and it's like trusting that you have everything within you to be able to get through these things. But we don't normally put ourselves in situations where we're forced to tap into the deepest part of our strength. And that was the biggest thing. When I came out of it, I was like, man, if I can fucking get through that, I can get through anything. Like it was like a strong, deep knowing that I could literally get through anything after going through that experience. So it's massive. And like the growth comes after the ceremony. It's not like the majority of it, like that cracks your mind open. And they're doing studies where it increases neuroplasticity. And it's funny because I was supposed to be in Colombia for only 3 weeks. And I ended up staying for 4 months because after it was coming up close to that 3-week mark, I'm like, I cannot go home. I can't go home. My mind was so expanded. Like it was literally like all of those pathways that were formed from this society and my belief system, they were now cracked open. And it was my job to reform them. And after plant medicine, the neuroplasticity is actually increased. So anything that you do after that, you pick it up a lot quicker, and you're able to actually switch like personalities, changing like behaviors, patterns of who you are, what you're doing, all so much quicker. So I was like, I can't go home, because the biggest things that came up for me was understanding that there are so many systems in North America that are very corrupt. There's a lot of shit that is not working. We're very oriented around finances and career, when in reality, that wasn't what drove me. What drove me was being able to create an impact and relationships and family. And in Colombia, that was their culture, right? Like they were really big about family and like culture and like relationships and doing things that you love and your passions. And like being over there allowed me that space and that time over the course of 3 months to recreate my whole belief system. And I'm so grateful I had an online business, because I could still make some money working online while I went through all of this shit. And people like watching my social media is like, you got like the tiny little skimmed version of all of the shit that actually went on. And just understand that when you watch people, you're only seeing the tiniest little shit, like little tiny little bit about what's actually going on underneath the surface. So when you see people growing and like expanding, they're doing so much work. Like anybody that's doing this work, I'm just like so like honored to be in their presence, because I'm like, man, I'm proud of you. You're digging deep.
Yeah, you just, with everything you just said there, like you unlocked something in my third eye, because I just blanked out after and missed everything that you said. But like you spoke one part about how you went to Colombia, and like coming out of that experience, like you realize that you can't come back to the same place that you were traumatized in, right? Because ultimately being in the society that we're in is traumatizing, and it's not traumatizing in the sense that our brain can understand it. It's traumatizing to our whole bodies, like our the body, mind, spirit complex.
Mm-hmm.
And to really like, because what plant medicines do, right, is they wipe our nervous system and allow us to create new habits in order to reset and create that foundation inside ourselves. And just you saying like staying there for 3 months like really helped you reform the way you saw like community is so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately community is our root chakra, right?
Yeah.
The base, it's
The
how
base,
we
yeah.
live in this world. And so to be able to experience that must have been so powerful. And yeah, just it just unlocked, it was just like, I honestly, when you were talking, just like
Yeah.
and I missed the rest of the things you were saying.
Yeah, it's crazy. I love how you mentioned too about like the our nervous system too. And our nervous system over here is so overstimulated. People don't understand that with this society, we're so busy, constantly on the go that our nervous systems are just shot. And our physical bodies are not able to actually do what they're meant to do, which is why there's so much like disease within our bodies and disease that we're manifesting within ourselves. And yeah, being over there, like I really tapped in. I did a lot of energy healing while I was over there. I had a guy that I went to and he did like chakra work and stuff like that. And it was incredible, like all of the work that he did. And that was really when I first started tapping into the more visions and stuff within me. I remember being in my one of the sessions with him when he would like muscle test and do some stuff. And then he would go through your chakras and rebalance them. And then you would go into a meditation. He would put acupuncture needles on you and then connect the little electrodes so they would pulse, and he would put them in different places and like he'd like put them on the top of your head and like wherever it was on the body based on his assessments of what he did. And I remember being in that meditation, just having my eyes closed and that, and I literally was in a cave and I was like, whoa, this was me sober. I'm like, I'm literally in when I had my eyes closed, I was in a cave and I saw a fire. And I asked him about that afterwards because it was the very first time that I've actually connected. And one big thing with plant medicine as well is that it decalcifies your pineal gland. And your pineal gland, maybe Sophia, you can talk a little bit more about this because I feel like you have more knowledge on that than I do. But yeah, maybe you can just talk about the pineal gland.
Yeah. So I kind of touched earlier on the amygdala, and the amygdala controls your fight or flight response, right? And that's your masculine energies. And to complement that, we need something that is more of a like calm energy, right? Which is your feminine, which is the pineal gland, and that kind of holds the seat of your soul. It's who you are from a universal perspective, and it's the ability to see yourself through the eyes of love clearly. And if that's not working, there's this disconnection to self. So the inability to feel like you know yourself because you literally can not connect to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so important to be able to like decalcify that, because that's where disease comes into the body, right? Is when the amygdala and the pineal gland aren't functioning in a balanced manner inside the brain in order to create like a good environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's huge. And there's lots of things in our society that calcify our pineal gland. You know, like I know like the water, like fluoride in our water calcifies our pineal gland. All of this stuff is coming out with all of these things, like the toxins in our foods, all of these things are coming out like with proof that this is happening. And I think that's why so many people are going with filtered water, like their Kangen machines or this or that, or detoxing, doing intermittent fasting. Like that's why all of these things are kind of coming about, like supplementing to be able to help counteract all of these things that are happening within our bodies, but we just don't have the knowledge around all of that stuff as like common knowledge quite yet.
Yeah, and it's like it's cool because we're getting there. Like I see so many powerful light worker friends like you, and then I have a friend who started an amazing like kombucha business, which was based around the fact that society puts so much pressure on us to drink, right? And we always get questioned when we're out, why aren't you drinking? And she was kind of tired of that, so she created a kombucha line that complemented like, or that basically mimicked cocktails. So it's like mock kombucha, right? And that also helps clear the gut, and the gut is connected to your amygdala, which is your masculine, and your root chakra, blah, 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 mental health, right? So there's so many beautiful people out there that are like getting into this stuff and creating products to help people heal. And I'm just so thankful to like literally know the people that are doing this and to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's so cool. That's what I love. Like, it's like we get to see all of the people creating all this change, whereas most people, they don't get to hear that side. So I just love being able to share these kind of stories with everybody. And so for that like experience that I had where I was like in the cave, I came out and I talked to him about it, and he said like, did you feel safe in the cave? Like, was there a way out? And I was like, yeah, I felt safe. And what he said to me was that there's an area of my life that I'm feeling trapped in right now, but because I felt safe in there, like I was close to getting out of that situation and like breaking through. And I knew that it had to do with my confidence in my inner child, because after my ayahuasca experience, that was a huge thing that I went through. And so then going through that, I was like, okay, that's cool. And that was one of the first things that really helped me to tap into understanding that visions that we see, as well as dreams, always have messages within them. And that's where I started like understanding more about that, because there's so many ways that we can receive messages, but most of us don't think that they're anything, like, so we just ignore them. And then, so I had an opportunity to go do Bufo. Well, I did Jopo first, which is another form of DMT. I kind of went hard, guys. You'll know this about me. Like when I choose to do something, like I don't fuck around. Aries energy.
The Aries are like literally like, I want that. People are like, but don't you? No. No.
Not when my mind's made up, it's like a done deal. So when I share stuff, it's like done deal. So I ended up doing that. And I remember going to that ceremony. We were driving up the mountain to go. I was terrified at this point because I'm like, after my experience with ayahuasca, it was only like a few months prior. And I was like, oh, what am I doing? But I felt the call. I knew I had to do it. That's the thing with me. I don't like, there's no logic to what I do. Even when I travel and stuff, people are like, why do you go there? I'm like, I don't know. Because I fucking felt like it.
Because I want to.
Yeah, like there was nothing logical about me going anywhere or doing any of this stuff. It's just I'm being guided, and I understand that now. But so I went and did Jopo, and that one was awesome. Like it was like there was definitely some heavy parts. And there's a cool story within this too. It's so with Jopo, it's a snuff as well. So you do it up your nose, and it's more mild. So you're still conscious throughout it, and it's like ayahuasca, but more mild. Doesn't last as long. And so there were still like waves of emotions, where I would feel really heavy, feel really light, like lots of revelations around that, seeing the geometric colors, stuff like that. And then the big thing, the shaman, he brought me into his office, which was really just like a chair in the middle of the field, and we would joke around. He's like, oh, come into my office. So he came in and sat on the chair, and he like asked me a few questions about how like the ceremony was going. And he was doing like his like I don't know, like removing energy from my body. And like he was saying things in Spanish. I didn't know what he was saying. And he said something as he pushed on my stomach. I had crazy pain in my stomach. And I was like, oh, that was weird. And I felt nauseous. And I felt very dark energy come over me. Like it reminded me of when I was in ayahuasca, when I was seeing those clowns. And it was just really dark energy. And he started wiping off my body and kind of like just throwing it into the field, whatever. And then I went and laid down after that. I laid down and literally, yeah, it's funny when they do that. But now like energetically, I can understand. I do that to myself sometimes now after really heavy things. Like I'm literally like, you wipe your body off and you like remove the energy from you, and it works, right? Yeah. And so I did that. I laid down and I went to go to the bathroom because I had to pee, went to the bathroom. And as I'm peeing, I literally like got up and I turned around and puked in the toilet, literally right after this. And it felt like this like energy like left me, and I felt so light, and that pain in my stomach was gone. The heaviness that I was feeling was completely gone. And it was literally right after he did all that stuff. And I was like, oh my God, what the heck is going on? This is crazy stuff. And it's like little things like that just like improve your belief in what all of this does. Yeah. So that was kind of like my Jopo experience. And then, so after I did the energy work with the cave stuff, shortly after that, a lot of stuff for me, same as you, emotional abandonment. Yeah. So I was at the cafe with my friend Alex, and we were meeting there for a business meeting, and she was sitting inside, and I came outside, and I told her that I was at the cafe. and she didn't say that she was there. So I just assumed that she wasn't at the cafe yet. And I went in to go to the bathroom and I saw her sitting there, and I got so triggered because I thought that she didn't want to be with, like, didn't want to hang out with me. Like, and this is the crazy thing that people don't understand, is this is all from past traumas when I was bullied and this and that. Like, it has nothing to do with the present moment. So when people act weird around you in this present moment, I don't even judge them anymore, because I know that it's not truly them.
Yeah. Right.
Right. And that was huge for me, understanding that, because when people do weird shit around you where it doesn't really make sense to you, it's from a past experience. They don't even know that they're doing it probably. So why are we judging them, or why are we whatever? So anyway, so in that moment, I got so like triggered. I was so angry because I thought that she like literally was like not wanting to like sit with me. Like she was literally like wanting to be on her own and didn't even want to tell me that she was there. And so our whole business meeting, I was so triggered and like not receiving any help she was giving me. I was just like literally like a child. And then afterward, we have a really good relationship, so we were able to talk about it and stuff like that. And I just kind of shared what happened. And that was like the triggering moment where I was like, oh my gosh, okay. Like I had a friend reach out to me that told me about Bufo, wasn't ready to do it because my past experiences with my other plant medicine. But the thing is, they say plant medicine calls you, and you'll know when it's your time to do it. And that was my thing. My friend had just reached out the night before that there was the shaman who was from Mexico, was coming to Colombia and was going to be there running a ceremony. And I was like, okay, like I told him I'd think about it. And then this experience happened with Alex at the cafe. And that was my like moment. I was like, fuck, I need to do this. Like I just feel this call. So I texted my energy worker, and I said, like, do you feel like this would be something that would help me break through this? What do you want to say?
This is so like, it's so cool though, because everything you're explaining is like a shamanic health system, right? You're like, so I texted my energy healer, and I texted my tarot card reader, my astrology reader, like, you know, like, it's literally like a different health system that
it is.
I just wanted to mention that.
I was actually just listening to something yesterday, and they were saying the difference between like the old healthcare system, the new healthcare system is when somebody feels ill or feels sick, they would text their astrologer instead of the doctor. And it's so true.
Text? I don't think they text back then.
No, I mean, like now, like imagine that if when people are actually feeling ill, they message their astrologer instead.
People are gonna text their shamans and stuff like that. Like,
seriously,
I love that we're moving into this. But yes, continue your story.
Yeah, so I texted him. He was like, yeah, I think this would be great. And then like, so I talked to my friend. He's like, I'm really surprised that he said that, because like for like him to like give you permission to do Bufo, which is like, it's plant medicine, it's something that's unpredictable, and Bufo is like MEO5 DMT. It's the strongest DMT that you can possibly do. And I'm just like, yeah, let's do it. And so many people have so much fear around it, but for me, I don't know, I just felt this calling. I knew that whatever was going to happen in that ceremony was going to help me massively. And so I ended up going and doing it. And when I did it, it was like, it's from a frog. Bufo is from a frog. So they extract like the jelly from when it's stressed, and then they take the jelly and then you smoke the jelly. Which sounds like super crazy.
Wait, what was this one?
Bufo.
Okay, and that's different than Kambo, but that's so weird.
Yeah, so the different frogs. Kambo is a detox. So I did Kambo before you do Bufo. So before any plant medicine ceremony, you'll do like a detox, and you'll eat very clean, because your body has to be pure to be able to actually like connect with the medicine. So Kambo is from a frog. I think it's a giant monkey tree frog. Okay. And same thing, they take the jelly, but with that one, you burn like little holes in your skin, and then they put the jelly on it. And depending where the holes are, depends on where your meridians are, what your intention is, goes with your chakra system. So it's very intentional with where they put the dots. And what it is it's a detox. So it will temporarily basically like poison you so that your immune system can get fired up and actually fight all of the different things that are going on within your body that are preventing you from being healthy. So it's just a really powerful way of detoxing, and you'll purge and feel really hot and feverish, but it doesn't last very long. So that's Kambo. So I did that before I did Bufo. And then, so yeah. And then, so with Bufo, with my experience with that, sorry, what were you gonna say, Sophia?
you notice a difference? Like, because I know different plant medicines work with in different areas of the body, right? Like, did you notice a difference between where the two, like Kambo versus Bufo worked? Like, did you feel settled more in your like physical body for one and more in your mental body for other? Or like, was it just like,
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for ayahuasca, it's a lot of internal work on yourself. It's very internal, whereas Bufo was very expanding. It was very like outward. And so when I did my first ceremony, basically like you do like a really slow inhale on the pipe, and like I was like coughing or whatever. And like as I'm doing it, like she'd be like, hey, like more. And then you would just go. And then like I started like literally like things just kind of started like getting weird. And like literally her face, like it went almost like I was in ancient times. And then with Bufo, you go completely like out of it. Like you're like completely gone. It's about 15 minutes and then you start coming back. And as it starts wearing off, then you'll come back
yeah,
completely out cold, like literally. And so as I came out of that one, I remember just being all white. So a lot of people can have different like things. Sometimes you won't remember anything. I remember just being all white. And I remember coming out of it and like I was so grateful for life. I felt so much love inside of my body. And like we were in the mountains, there's birds, there's trees. I had my friends there that were also doing the ceremony with me, like they were a part of it. And I remember coming out of it and I had such a massive, like it was connected oneness between me, between them, between the nature, between the planet, between everything. It was just like this huge sense of oneness. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like so incredible. And I remember sitting there cross-legged and I was bawling my eyes out because everything was just so perfect. And I understood that all of it was so like systematically put together where all of these ecosystems work so perfectly together for it to all function as one. And it was just incredible. And I was sitting there, my shoulders hunched, and I was like literally like crying. And like this voice came in my head that just said, sit up straight and be more confident and like receive the love. And I remember sitting up and like straighten my shoulders up. And it was literally like another one of those light switches went on. And it was like, oh my gosh, it was like another level of confidence of who I was and what I had to offer, understanding that I am a part of this ecosystem, that I have something to be able to offer to the world with this. And I remember I was just like bawling my eyes out. Like I gave all my friends hugs and I was just so grateful for them.
so
And it was just like insane.
That sounds like an incredible experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And then knowing me, like, I'm like, yeah, that was great. Let's do it again next weekend.
Oh, right. That's how I
So
felt.
I went back and did it again.
I realized like after, I'm like, no, you definitely need time.
I definitely didn't. I went right back. And
Yeah.
even that week, like I felt so good. Like it was like I was literally like seeing the world through a different lens. But my second time around, I will share a little bit about this. I know this is getting a little long, but you guys can totally split this up and have however many episodes you want, because this is awesome. You guys asked, so we're giving it to you. But yeah, so then in the second one, it was completely different situation. And I shared about this in an Instagram post recently where I felt so alone and so numb and disconnected. I was outside of my body and I literally like I couldn't even feel my body. At one point, like it felt like I wasn't breathing and it felt really like positive and loving and whatever. And that was great. But then as I came out of it, I literally was so numb to my body. I saw like my friends, whatever, sitting there talking. I wanted nothing to do with them. I like literally was so like, it was just that really dark, lonely feeling. And that's like was the hugest thing that kind of came out of that. And I remember coming out of that ceremony and I asked the shaman, I'm like, was so confused coming out of that ceremony. Cause I'm like, why are humans here? We're freaking killing the planet. We're hurting people. Like there's all of this pain. Like we're hurting people by acting through this fear and acting through this pain. I'm like, why, if everything is so perfect, did they put humans here when we're just freaking destroying all of it? And she was like, well, there's no dissociation between humans and between all of it. And she said that, and it just really connected me back to the oneness of it all. And I was like, okay, yeah. And I could see, like, even being in that experience, that I knew that this was like a pivotal time for humanity where things were freaking shifting. Like we're in the very beginning of this like big pivotal shift that is happening within the whole of humanity. And the more you dive into astrology, you'll understand this, that switch into the Aquarian age, which is more community and loving and falling of systems, which is why you'll see a lot of people talking in a lot of the stuff coming up now about all of the systems that are in place and all of the dark energies that are actually involved with them and the people that are running them and all that stuff. Like you'll see all that stuff coming up now, because it's the time where we're shifting into a whole new era where the systems are falling and all of this new way of things is going to start going. So if you're not really into it yet, just maybe expand your mind and open your mind into starting to explore some of these things, because it's not going anywhere, right? People want things to go back to the way that they were. They're never going to go back to the way that they were, right? This is a huge evolutionary period.
Yeah, like from like just even from an evolutionary standpoint, like things can stay stagnant, right? So we just have to accept that change is going to happen. So we might as well start learning about energies, because it's really fun. Like
it's so fun.
Like I actually just saw, I can see an energy over there, like right now with my third eye, and I just like keep looking over. Like it's fun. Like you get to open your world to like a whole new realm of understanding how to interact with the external that we're in, right? And you feel so much more safe, because the thing is, like with our five senses, we can only see so much, but with energy, you trust energy.
Yeah. And one of the big things too, that I heard the other day is like, it's interesting how this is coming up, but dogs, they're able to hear sounds that humans can't hear. Does it mean that that sound doesn't exist? No, it's just that we haven't accessed how to hear it. It's the exact same thing with our sight and all of these things. There's so many things within the human realm that we just haven't accessed yet. Doesn't mean that it's not real.
Yeah.
No, right? It's crazy. And like when you think about it like that, like dogs, like they hear things that we don't hear. It doesn't mean that it's not there. No, like it's the exact same thing. And there's nothing to be afraid of when it comes to the unknown, and really trusting that it's not like you're just going to go one day from like literally being who you are to now freaking like something like totally different. Like it's a slow progression, because you're never going to get something that you can't handle, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a slow progression of the rise in consciousness of what's going on. So it's like there's nothing to be afraid of with this process either. Like it's fun.
And yeah, it's super fun, and it's really liberating too, right? But it's also something that we're here to go through regardless of whether we want to or not.
Yeah, exactly.
If you resist it, it's going to be harder, right? If you just flow with it and allow the changes, no matter how much they make you cry, no matter how much they feel like they're against you, just allowing them to come in is so much easier than attaching to stuff. Yeah. It's like, you know what? You just feel liberated. You're like, what's here is here, and what's gone is gone. And we just have to accept it. But yeah, living in the world and energies too, like you just feel yourself. Like you can go out in public, and like you don't realize how much just being out in public and other people talking to you, not even like to harm you by any means, but that even them sharing their stories and that dark dense energy, like we don't realize how much that actually has an impact on us, right? And just learning how to put that energetic shell on and have that firm foundation of knowing who you are is like a whole different experience to like go over.
Yeah, it's all coming back. We're all coming back home. It's really what we're doing throughout this whole process.
Yeah, it's actually, and it's really funny too, because like if you talk to people, like everybody's going through some sort of shift in their life, whether it's they're changing jobs, they've broken up in a relationship, maybe they're struggling with finances. There's something in everybody's life that's kind of like a big like blah for them. And that is the Great Awakening, right? Because the only way to change is to be shifted, is to forced to be shifted, right? If you weren't looking at yourself before, now you have to.
Yeah, and it's crazy because all of these things have always been going on, where we've always had all of these situations going on within our own personal lives, but we've wore those masks where everything looks perfect and then it's all like all dandy and all these things, because we've never just opened up and talked about it. Yeah, now it's like the masks are off and people are actually opening up and sharing, and it's like with the stuff that happens when we can actually do that, it's so impactful, and like you learn so much, and you start coming from this place of acceptance and love for yourself and other people, which is what this is all about, right? the reason why Sophia and I came on here to share all of this craziness in our own personal lives was so that you could now find a sense of peace and understanding with what you have personally gone through. So stop undervaluing your story, right? Stop undervaluing what you've been through. It's okay if you've been through it. One of the things that I love hearing is what is it? It's okay if you're fucked up, but it's not okay if you stay fucked up. Right? Because it's not our fault that we're fucked up, but it's our fault if we stay fucked up. That's what it is. Because now there's tools for us to get unfucked up. So we can actually like come to this place of acceptance and love for ourselves. And that's truly what it's all about. It's not about other people. It's about us finding home within ourselves. And as we do that, we then are able to show up more for our family, our friends, our loved ones. But we can't show up for people outside of ourselves until we show up for ourselves inside of ourselves.
Exactly. And like when you get to start knowing yourself like more and more, like you become more in touch with your subtle bodies, right? So you know more, like you know intuitively when you're not full and when you're not able to give and when you need like you start to like learn like almost as if it's going to the bathroom how to fill your cup, right? And so you just have to be patient with yourself while you unlearn so you can relearn, because really what you're doing is you're resetting your whole nervous system, right? Like at a physical level, you're telling your body that everything that you've learned isn't the truth. So you can relearn your external reality from a place of unattachment to the experience you've had. So you can tell yourself a different story. And that's going to help propel you on your life path forward, right? And that literally resets your nervous system. And I'm talking like on a physical level, so just be patient with yourself. It took me 30 years to get to where I am, and I'm just at the point where like I've just unlocked how to reset my nervous system, and now I'm working with Laura as a life coach to be able to like have somebody to speak to about this, right? Like we all need people to speak to. We all, it's about connection and community.
Connection and community is huge.
It's like, that's one thing I'm learning along my journey too, is to not be afraid to like reach out and to be vulnerable and like, just be patient.
Yeah. And having that, like the people to be able to open up and share all this shit about, like, it's massive. So I'm grateful for you doing that. And even just to tap back into like how you shared from that pattern from your past about how literally that trauma from when you were young impacted your ability to have that connection. And there's so many people, like I know that happened for me huge with all the stuff that happened in my past, where I wouldn't allow people into my life. I wouldn't open up. I wouldn't feel vulnerable with other people because I had shame and I looked poorly upon myself. The amount of times that I would energetically self-harm myself without even knowing it. Now that I have the awareness around it, like, for example, literally a couple of weeks ago, I was, this is just a kind of weird, fucked up example of this. But once you have the awareness of the energies going on within your body, it's insane. But this stuff is going on whether you have awareness of it or not. I wanted to have pizza, and I tuned into the energy within my body, and literally the energy in my body was doing it out of self-harm. Like I was eating it because I knew that I would not feel good afterwards. And it was self-harm, which was such a dark energy. And I tuned into it and I was like, holy fuck, what is this from? And it was like, there was something small that happened in the day that I wasn't happy with about something that I did or something like this. Wow. And energetically in my subconscious mind from all these past patterns, like literally binge eating. I never realized I was a binge eater until I met Julia, who is a recovery coach. And I went through Recover and Rise, which I'm releasing again with her in the fall. Which is massive. I'm so excited to share more about that. But I realized that was what I was doing. And when I realized it, the cool thing about this is that when we can understand the underlying energies that are going on behind our actions, we don't necessarily have to change the actions, right? So I still had the pizza, but what I did was recognizing it and understanding it. I was able to have like a mini conversation with myself and soothe that inner part of myself and be able to enjoy that pizza because I fucking wanted to enjoy pizza. Not out of this energy of self-harm.
Good.
Right. I know. And I love it. And I ate that pizza and I loved it, but it was like really being able to understand the energies that are going on within us and shift it so we can continue doing things from that place. And you can see how the outcome is completely different when we can shift the underlying energies. So it's just absolutely crazy. I don't even remember why I shared that story, but
Yeah, because everything's all about intent, right? Everything that you do is about the intent you put behind it, right? So because the world responds to you in energies. So if you're saying I love you to somebody, but your intent is to just like shut them up, they're gonna feel those energies, right? And we as people read off of energies, right? And when we don't understand that and we don't understand our traumas, we react. And that's how we get ourselves in situations that we don't really like.
Yeah.
And so learning how to read all your bodies and learning to understand your traumas and how it interacts in your relationships with the world, with like you were saying, food, right? Because everything is in relationship. So how does it impact your relationship to the things you are choosing to engage with? Because that is health right there. That is holistic health. You're literally saying to all your bodies, I've got you. Because
Yeah.
they're working for you. They're working to give you the best life that you could possibly have on this earth. And you got to work for them too. Team effort here.
Yeah. And the results you get out of them are insane. We can literally be, do, or have anything, guys. Anything.
Yeah. It's just about shifting your perspective. But shifting your perspective is the hardest thing to do in the world.
Yeah, it takes time and consistency. And we're so distracted by other things that it's like you really have to chunk out this time to be able to do this work, right? It's like even like an hour or like coaching session a week, right? And you take some time to do other things. It's like anybody can fit this stuff in, but you have to want it. You have to make it a priority. Just like going to the gym. Like if you want to go to the gym, you've got to go to the gym for maybe an hour once a day or whatever, right? It's like you've got to plan it in there and schedule it. It's the same thing with this. And like Sophia said, this isn't something that happens overnight. We did not become the women that we are today based off of just like hoping or wishing that this would happen. Like we were intentional with what we were doing. And we dedicated the hours to doing it.
And there's so many people who we just don't understand that there's a process to undoing certain patterns. Like you just mentioned the gym, right? Like you can make a choice to either go to the gym or you don't go to the gym. There's no like in between. You either go or you don't go. When you're choosing not to go, you have to understand that that's a consciousness that's inside you, right? And to undo that, that's a process. So you have to set the intent and allow the process to play itself out fully in order to release it, in order to shift it, right? So again, it goes back to patience.
Yeah, all
right?
of it.
And allowing the process to happen, to unfold.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, well, thank you so much, Sophia, for coming on here today. Like,
I have no idea what we're talking about.
Me neither.
I was actually working with plant medicines guys through this. So a lot of the things I probably channeled from plant medicines. So I have to give cannabis and iboga and golden teacher because that's the only shrooms that I work with right now.
Nice. Give them a shout out.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I know I've been working more. I just ordered a whole bunch of like microdose capsules and also golden teacher and then also penis envy mushrooms.
What? Okay, you have to send me your address still so I can send you those
yeah, I will.
You can try to work with them.
I will for sure. Yeah, it's such powerful work. So I hope that you guys received value out of this episode today. If you did and you know somebody that would resonate with this, please share it with them. Please contact both Sophia or I if you have any questions, if anything on here resonated, if you want to dive deeper into your own understanding of yourself. We're here for you. We love you. And thank you so much for just being on and just watching this whole episode with both Sophia and I. We're just like so grateful for you continuing to learn and grow and expand your horizons, opening up your heart to an entirely new way of being, because there's truly like so much out there that you've yet to experience. And one of the quotes that I love is, how cool is it that the best days of your life have yet to happen yet?
Yeah, right. that's the best part about healing, is that like every time you're down, you just know that things are about to get 10 times better than you could have ever imagined. So to just keep going, right? Like, you got this.
Yeah. The breakdown before the breakthrough.
Exactly.
Whenever I'm feeling the breakdown now, I'm like, okay, dear God, could we just please get to the breakthrough already?
Like, okay, and we're here. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like just understanding that all of it's there for a reason.
Yeah, definitely. And I just wanted to say to anybody who's watching this too, thank you for like listening to it. Thank you for your time, because time is really valuable. And I want to offer like my time if you ever need somebody to talk to, because I know how lonely I was throughout my journey. And like, I know there was purpose for that, because now I'm here to be here for you. And I do want to emphasize that. Like, I love listening to people's stories. Like, I'm not here to tell you how to live your journey. You are the leader in your life. I just want to hear your experience. And if you need some clarity, I'm here to help. And that's it.
Beautiful. And do you want to repeat your Instagram handle again so that people can make sure they follow?
It's at Sophie Clark. It's SOFIE CLARK.
Beautiful. Amazing. Well, thank you so much again, Sophia, for like being vulnerable and opening up and sharing and really starting the flow of this conversation, because we had no clue what was going to pan out today.
You're gonna have to send me this so I hear myself talk. Oh God.
Yeah, we had no clue. This is off the cuff, like I was just chatting, shooting the shit. So
oh wait, another thing.
Yeah.
As a client of Laura, like, I can tell you right now, guys, if you ever need somebody to listen to you and to help you organize your life because you can't, she's your gal, man. Like, she came in and just completely like grounded me and helped me basically like see that the way I see the world is okay, and that it's safe to be down here and to go out and explore the world. So that's a gift that she gave me through her work. And so thank you for that. And I just wanted to give you a shout out for that.
Oh, thanks, Sophia. You're the best. Yeah, I'm super grateful that we had this opportunity. And shout out to Sarah for connecting the two of us.
Yeah.
It's been like a massive, massive blessing. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on here, Sophia. We all love you so much. And thank you so much to everybody who has watched this or listened to this episode. We appreciate you. We're here for you, and we see you for all that you are. Bye, everybody.